Hello students, welcome to BTech 360. This is a very important video for all the students who appeared for the JEE Mains examination in the April sessions across one of the 9 shifts that you have. As you know, the exam happened between April 2nd to April 8th over 9 shifts. April 8th there was only 1 shift. And the important thing for all of us, we all know that ultimately only when we get 99 percentile and above, we stand a good chance of getting into one of the NITs. And of course, up to 90 percentile, you are likely to get into the JEE Advanced also. So what we did was we spoke to our own faculty, which has been going through the papers every single day, and they also conducted live sessions for you to explain to you and analyze the paper at some level. And we also spoke to a lot of faculty across many of the big coaching institutions also. What we did is summary of everything that we did in terms of the shift wise, what is the score, how easy or moderate or difficult it was, the score that you're likely to get for the 99 percentile, 98 percentile, 97 percentile and 90 percentile also. And the important thing that you must know is, see, what we're trying to do is to create, understand from all the faculty and also our own faculty and try to come up with some kind of a score that is possibly the one that you should be looking at to calculate your percentile and then also your rank. We all know that, you need that percentile of 99 percentile and above to get into one of the NITs and 90 percentile and above to be, eligible for the JEE Advanced. So what we're doing now is taking you through shift wise, day wise and shift wise, the score versus percentile, and what are your chances of getting into the whole thing in terms of what are your marks that you need to get a certain percentile which will make you eligible for JEE Advanced or possibly getting into one of the NITs or IIITs or GFTIs. Right. Now let's look at the number here, right? In 2026, in session 1, the registered students was 13.55 lakh and the appeared student is 13,04,000. When you compare it with the previous year, it was 12.58 lakh students appeared, which means we're dealing with about 4% jump in terms of total number of students who appeared for the examination. The jump is about 46,000, right? About 4% jump. So very clearly there is so much more competition for you. There is about 46,000. Now that is only for session 1. When you come to session 2, last year about 10.61 lakh students registered and 9.92 lakh students appeared. This year the registered is jumped to 11.23 lakh and the appeared is 10.44 lakh. So again about 4.5% jump. So in all, what you're looking at is about 4.5% jump in the number of candidates. So to that extent, you're dealing with greater competition. Across the board, you're dealing with greater competition as far as the 2026 cycle is concerned as compared to 2025 cycle. That's the first thing that you must notice, that you're dealing with about 40 to 50,000 students who appeared for the examination, and to that extent, you will be dealing with a slightly greater competition. Now the most important thing, what we'll do is we'll go day wise and shift wise to analyze each examination and explain to you what are your likely scores as a summary at the end of it. So keep watching me till the end of the thing. And before I move any further and start showing you the numbers, my simple request, please subscribe to BTech 360. It's very important for us to know that you are actually following us and we are actually able to help you out in terms of how you're deciding for yourself. So from that perspective, please do subscribe to BTech 360. If you want to talk to any of our counselors, there's a number out here. Please message us on the number and we'll be happily calling you up. One of our counselors will call you up and fix up a separate time for a counseling session, personal counseling session. Because a lot of parents said that they don't want to, put it on the social media of what their issues are. They would want to talk to us personally. So we'll be happy to talk to you because our objective is simple, that we want to guide you into the best college and the best course possible. And the third thing is, if you want me to cover any other, issue that you might be having, which is a detailed video, please write to us in the message box and we'll again cover that for you. My research team will work on it and I'll be the presenter presenting it out to you. Right. So now the thing of session, I talked to you about day wise and session wise is what we'll discuss. Before I move further, Career 360 also has something called a rank predictor. We call it a rank predictor, rank and score predictor. We call it JEE Mains rank predictor 2026. If you want to know more about it, just go to Career 360, use the JEE Mains rank predictor, put up your data, and it will tell you what is the rank that you will get based on the percentile and everything. It will calculate everything backwards and tell you based on, you need to fill up the exam session, date of birth, application number and all those things, and overall score based on the answer key. Based on the answer key. Once you do that, and the answer key also is there on a platform, by the way. For each of the session, we also have the answer key. So go through that and then will be able to suggest to you what is the kind of rank that you'll get. You can also use the rank that you get to use it on the college predictor, which at some point in time will be a paid product, but right now it is free. You can use it right now, use the rank, and you'll exactly know what college you'll get in which branches across NITs, GFTS, and everything through JOSA counseling. Now the thing about day-wise, session-wise I was talking about. The first one is, we're talking about 2nd April, shift 1. Here, the overall analysis by a faculty is that it's easy to moderate. It is easy to moderate, right? The physics paper was very, very easy. Maths was moderate, and chemistry was easy. So we're basically saying maths is more difficult, physics was easy, and chemistry was the easiest of the 3 subjects that you had. Now, based on this easy to moderate, the percentile for 99 percentile would be about 176 to 180. 176 to 180 is what you will hit at for the 176 to 1 for the 99 percentile. For 98 percentile, we are dealing with 156 to 160, right? For the 95 percentile, we are dealing with 121 to 125. And for 90 percentile, we are dealing with 86 to 90. This is the range that we're dealing with. And in between, of course, you have a lot of students filling in for each of these things. But at 99 percentile, we're dealing with about 180 marks. And at 90 percentile, we're dealing with 86 marks. So we are dealing with 86 to 180 for 90 percentile to 99 percentile. That's the 2nd April shift 1. In shift 2, the overall analysis is, it's a moderate paper, because there are 2 papers which are not easy, but rather all 3 papers are moderate. Earlier there were 2 papers which are easy, mind you. Now all the 3 papers are moderate. And of course, within that, maths was the most difficult within the moderate, followed by physics and followed by chemistry. Now here, for 99 percentile, you need to be at 181 to 185. For 98 percentile, you will be between 161 and 165. For 95 percentile, you will be between 126 to 130. And for 90 percentile, you will be between 91 to 95. So what you're dealing with is, for 99 percentile, 185. For 90 percentile, you're dealing with 91. So that is the range that we're dealing with for 99 to 90 percentile. So this is the box that we're dealing with, right? For 99, 185% marks, and for 90. This is 2nd April shift 2. Now let's move to the 3rd one, which is 4th April shift 1. Here the paper was overall analysis is easy to moderate. Physics was easy to moderate. Difficult, maths was difficult, and chemistry was easy. So maths, of course, is the most difficult of the paper, followed by physics, and followed by chemistry, which is easy. So you actually had difficult, easy to moderate, and chemistry was easiest, right? And here the score would be 99 percentile, we're talking of 186 to 190 marks is what you need. For 98 percentile, it will be 166 to 170. For 95 percentile, it is 131 to 135. And for 90 percentile, it is 96 to 100. So what we're talking about is now 190 for 90 percentile. And for 99 percentile, for 90 percentile, it's 96. So that is the box that we're dealing with. Right. So that's the 3rd shift, that session we're talking of. The 4th one is the 4th April shift 2. 4th April shift 2. Overall analysis easiest among all shifts. This is, by the way, uniform across every coach that we spoke to, every faculty we spoke to. Everyone says this seems to be the easiest of all the shifts. Here physics was easy, maths was moderate, and chemistry was easy. So maths is the most difficult of the 3, followed by physics, followed by chemistry. So because of that, your 99 percentile is 191 to 195, 98 is 171 to 175, 95 is 136 to 140, and 90 is 101 to 105. So what we're dealing with is 99 percentile being 195 and 90 percentile being 101, right? So that is the 4th April shift 2. Now let's move to 5th April shift 1. Here the overall analysis is, it's a moderate, shift, where physics was moderate, maths was moderate, and chemistry was easy. Across the board, if you notice, chemistry has been very easy across the board, and maths seems to be the most difficult of the lot. So here also it's maths, followed by physics, followed by chemistry. And that's a uniform thing, if you notice very carefully, that maths seems to be the toughest of the 3 papers, and chemistry seems to be the easiest of the all papers, and across all the shifts, by the way, and physics was somewhere in between. Now here for 99 percentile, you need 171 to 175. because it's moderate. 98 is 151 to 155. 95 is 116 to 120, and for 90 percentile it's 81 to 85. So what we're dealing with is 175 for 90 percentile, right? And for 90 percentile it is 81. That is the box that we're dealing with, right? 81 to 175 is what we're doing. 175 for 99 percentile to 81 for 90 percentile. Now the next one, which is 5th April shift 2. Again, the oral analysis is moderate. Physics was easy to moderate. Maths was moderate. And chemistry is moderate to tough. So again, here also maths seems to be moderate, but chemistry moderate to tough. So maybe this has to come this side. And physics was again in between. So only in this one, you actually see chemistry being moderate to tough. Otherwise, everything is moderate or easy to moderate. Now, based on that, at 99 percentile, you need to get 166 to 170. At 98 percentile, you need to get 146 to 150. 95 percentile, 111 to 115. And 90 percentile is 76 to 80. So what we're dealing with is 99 percentile being 170 and 90 percentile being 76. That is your score at this point in time. We're dealing with 76 to 170 being the thing, right? Now the next one, 6th April shift 1. Now this was the toughest of all the papers. Again, a unanimous decision that this seems to be the toughest of all the things. Physics was moderate but lengthy. Maths was difficult and chemistry was moderate to tough. So one was lengthy, one was tough, and one was difficult. So maths was the toughest of the lot, very difficult. Chemistry has come in between and then followed by physics. Now here, the scores obviously, because it's the toughest of all the shifts, the scores have fallen. So you actually, for 99 percentile, you need 151 to 155. For 98 percentile, you need 131 to 135. For 95 percentile, you need 96 to 100. And for 90 percentile, you need 61 to 65. So now you notice it, for 99 percentile, you need 155. And for 90 percentile, you need up to 61. That's the thing. For 99 percentile, 155. For 90 percentile, 61. The scores fell dramatically here. Now move forward to 6th April shift 2. Here, the paper was overall moderate. Physics was easy to moderate. Maths was moderate. Chemistry was moderate. So again, maths followed by chemistry followed by physics. So now, since the days moved, suddenly chemistry became slightly more difficult than physics. Here for 99 percentile, you need 161 to 165. For 98 percentile, we think it's 141 to 145. For 95 percentile, we think it should be 106 to 110. And for 90 percentile, we get 71 to 75. So what we're dealing with is, for 99 percentile, 165. And for 90 percentile, we're dealing with 71. That is the thing, 165. For 165 to 171 is what we're talking of, because the overall analysis is moderate. 8th April shift 2. Here it was moderate to difficult, oral analysis. Physics was moderate, maths was moderate and lengthy, and chemistry was moderate. So there is nothing which is easy here across all the three papers. Maths was the most difficult, of course, followed by chemistry, followed by physics. For here, because of the moderate nature of the thing, moderate to difficult nature of the overall analysis, 99 percentile is 156 to 160, 98 percentile is 136 to 140, 95 percentile is 101 to 105, and 90 percentile is 66 to 70. So that is the range that we're talking about. Now, which means that it should be 160 for 90 percentile, 99 percentile, and for 90 percentile it should be 66. That is the range that we're talking about. 66 to 160 between 99 percentile and 90 percentile. Now, overall, if you look at it, shift 1 was easy to moderate, shift 2 was moderate on 2nd April. 4th April, shift 1 was easy to moderate, shift 2 was easiest. So this was the easiest of the lot. Shift 2 was the easiest of the lot, right? 5th April, shift 1 was easy, shift 2 was moderate, 6th April, shift 1 was the toughest of the lot. So 4th April, shift 2 was the easiest, and 6th April, shift 1 is the toughest of the lot. 6th April, shift 2 is moderate, and 8th April, shift 1 is moderate to difficult. The easiest of the lot is 4th April shift 2 and 6th April shift 1 is the toughest of the lot. Now based on that, when you look at this thing, for 99 percentile across the board, if you now notice, 195 is the highest that you'll get because it's the easiest of the lot, and then the lowest that you're getting is 151 in the toughest lot that you remember. Right? For 98 percentile again, the easiest you'll get at 175 would be the highest that you got, and then the lowest would be it's going up to 131 marks. Again, easiest, and because remember these were easiest of the lot and these are toughest of the lot. Right? Then moving forward for 195 percentile, you actually have this thing I already explained to you. The lowest again we are talking of is about 140, highest rather, across the board, and the lowest is coming down to 96 marks for the 95 percentile. And then for the 90 percentile, the highest is 105, the lowest is 61, which is the toughest paper that you have. And you also have a screenshot which I've already explained. What I'm showing you is exactly what you've seen earlier. You know, when you look at it as easy to moderate and all, it all mirrors what we're talking about, that this is the thing that you're dealing with. 9-10 percentile, you're dealing with 195 being the highest and 151 being the lowest. Now also look at this whole thing, right? You have 44 marks for the 99 percentile variance, right? And here you actually see this one also, you actually have 44% variance. And between 99 percentile and 90 percentile, if you look at it, one is the 44 marks that we're talking about, right? That's the first thing, that the variance between the highest and the lowest within the shifts for the 99 percentile is about 44 marks. 195 marks is what we expect to be the highest mark for 99 percentile, and 151 marks we expect to be the lowest possible for the 99 percentile across all the shifts. And then for 90 percentile, it's 105 to 61. The other thing is between 99 percentile and 90 percentile, if you see, again the range is about 90 marks is the difference. Between 99 percentile and 90 percentile, the difference is 90 marks across all the shifts. Across all the shifts, you notice, like for example, you see 195 and 105, 90 marks. Here 151 and 61, 90 marks. So very clearly, at the highest level, you know, you actually see at percentile level between the shifts, you're dealing with about, about 44 marks being the different, and between 99 percentile and 90 percentile, you actually see a 90 marks kind of a difference across the board. And the reason why we're talking of 90 percentile is because you're also talking of JEE Advanced in a certain sense. And 99 percentile is something that you need to get into the better college in a branch of your choice, which is where, by the way, even that is difficult. You should know that 99 percentile, we're dealing with about 14,000 rank kind of a number, 14 to 15,000 rank kind of a number. So, but having said that, this is the summary of the shift-wise calculation that you have. If you have any questions, I will be happy to take it up in the next session. Post your questions here once this video is uploaded. Very soon, what I'll do is I'll pick up each of your questions and start responding to that. And that's the way we go ahead. And of course, if you want me to cover any college, I'll be happy to cover that. But please do subscribe to BTech 360 while you're asking those questions also. Thank you so much. Namaste.